What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Quality Talks podcast. It's been a while since we've recorded online because the last episode that we dropped was an in-person episode on our roadshow event up in Leeds, which was a huge success. And I want to just say another massive thank you to Exalto Consulting, Rachel Morgan, and Cleveland Henry for making that event so incredibly successful. Everybody was great. And if you did attend, I hope you had a great time. And yeah, we're looking to do more of those same type of events in person with a live audience moving forward. Today's episode, though, what are we going to be doing on today's episode? Well, we've got a special guest joining us very shortly. Our special guest is Yulia Sharabi, and we're going to be talking about the journey that she's been on in her career. So she's currently a QA manager, and over her career, she's dealt with many different changes, and yeah, we're going to talk more around what that's looked like, how she's evolved in her role as a person, becoming more of a generalist, and just navigating that career path that so many people are having to go on. And with the changes that we see so often in tech, we as an industry from a quality and testing perspective have to be able to adapt to change and do it in a way that we continue to grow, learn, and be very open-minded. So we're going to get into that with Yulia, and she's going to talk to us about her journey, some of those challenges she's faced, some of the learnings that she's been through, how she's responded to change but also influenced change as well in her different roles. So it's going to be really cool. So I'm not gonna wait any longer. I'm going to bring Yulia on now. Hey, Yulia, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, to be here today. How are you?
I'm very pleased you could make it, and we've been talking for a little while about coming on and doing this episode. So it's great that we finally can line it up and have this conversation. I'm looking forward to it. I gave a very brief intro, Yulia, before bringing you on, but I'm going to hand over to you to introduce yourself properly to the audience.
My name is Yulia. Um, I am a QA manager, QA lead for over a decade in different industries and different company sizes.
Mhm.
I started in a corporate networking domain with a manual QA and then some automation later on. Then I moved to a medical startup, and at the end, I ended leading a distributed team in a crypto domain, Web3 domain. And my career has a lot of changes during the time, you
Mm.
know. So I had a lot of abilities to adapt to new realities, both as a hands-on QA engineer and also as a manager to lead people with the different changes that come to our domain.
Yeah, and I remember when we had our introduction, Yulia, and you talked about going from the medical side to the crypto startup side, and I was a bit like, that's a big shift. That's a really like a big change to sort of go from that to the other side of things. So and that's something that we're going to get into in terms of talking through your career and how you've had to adapt through that and change, and obviously then influence change in the same way. But you're also a member of the Ministry of Testing community as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I'm new to it actually. I found out a bit about it, let's say by mistake, you can say. It's not like I Googled it and then I found it.
No.
I had a blog for many years
Mm.
where I wrote some articles, and I was in a Women in Tech Slack group where I posted a draft to one of the articles that I wanted to post in the
Yeah.
QA group, like channel in Slack. And I asked if anyone want to review and give me feedback. And then I got one of the MOT writers to ask me if I can write for them. That's how I got the intro.
Brilliant. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, these things just sort of happen, don't they? Just out of the blue. And
Yeah. Sometimes you just need to put yourself out there and someone will pick it up.
yeah, exactly. And I love these sort of success stories of when that happens as well, because often people feel like, oh, I've got nothing to say, I've got nothing to write that anybody wants to hear. But actually, if you just go out and put yourself out there, share your experience, share some content,
Yeah.
this is a sort of thing that can happen. So yeah, I'm really happy that you found the community, because it's a great community.
It is. It is. It's really, really. I'm
Yeah,
just like unwrapping all the advantages there. I'm stunned from all
yeah,
the things that they do.
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm sure as you unwrap more and become more and more involved, we'll be seeing and hearing more from you in that space, most definitely. So I'm really excited about that. So Yulia, I wanna start with sort of a question more around how did you get started in the QA world or even in tech in general? So when did that happen? How did it come about? And yeah, and then we'll build from there and we'll just get into some conversation about your career and stuff.
Okay, basically, I'm coming from a very realistic background family. My mom is a mathematics and physics teacher. My
Right.
father is a electricity engineer, architect, and my uncle is a programmer. So it was in the family, you can say.
Yeah. Yes.
But when I began my career, I studied in very orthodox schools because I'm very orthodox in my background. And most of my friends, like, they go to be teachers. So I
Right.
go
Okay.
to be a teacher as well.
Yeah.
I studied English as a teacher and it was going fine. I enjoyed it. Couldn't say that I don't. But after 6 months, I decided to quit and to study computer science.
Okay.
I knew programming language before because at high school I choose as a subject coding, so I knew it, and that's how I started with the computer
Mm.
engineering and coding and everything.
Yeah.
Actually, during the degree, we learned maybe one course about QA. It's not like the focus of it.
No.
I didn't know that I'm going to be a QA at that time. And at my third year, many of my friends start to work in a corporate in a student position, like a
Mm.
half week, like 25 hours a week and something like that. So I also started it, and that's how I got into QA. Like I started to do QA for it
Yeah.
was Amdocs
Yeah.
in the network domain, and we start with the it was then waterfall model that we
Yes.
work at. Yeah, it was 2010. So yeah, so I started there and I discovered that I liked it. Like it was fitting my very critical thinking, and
Mm.
I like the part of seeing a big picture, but being also in the details.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Whereabouts did you study, Yulia?
I studied in a college in Israel, basically near my
Because
house. I was going home every day, like see my
yeah.
parents, see my grandma.
Nice, nice. I find it interesting. The reason I asked that question is because you talked there about, you know, studying computer science and you had like one module on QA and testing. And
Yeah.
I find it interesting because it's very, very similar in the UK as well. Like the often when you speak to grads that have come out from computer science degrees and you talk to them about testing and quality engineering as it's known now,
Hmm.
there often it's like, yeah, we didn't really do much on it. And I find it really interesting and also to some degree concerning that it's not talked about more in terms of wrapping that up into a subject matter within the bigger picture in a bit more detail. And obviously that was a few years ago, but it's still happening now here in the UK in terms of I feel like we need to get more focus on quality engineering, software testing, QA actually being a career path that people can follow. Because often when
Yeah, it's like there is no such a specific degree to
no,
study it. It's like more certifications and courses and such.
yeah,
Actually, during your career, maybe you feel that too. At the
yeah,
beginnings, you just test and you do things that they make sense to you.
yeah,
Let's say you need to test some range of numbers that your input is between 0 to 5. So automatically you will test less than 0, more than 5, and in the middle.
mm,
But then no one told you that this is boundary conditions testing.
no,
It just makes sense.
yeah, it does. And I think that's the mindset. That's the critical thinking mindset, and the people that gravitate towards QA and software testing have, because like you say, it just makes sense. It's like why wouldn't you do those things, you know? But yeah, so I find it interesting. And yesterday, my son's 17, and he's going through his final year of A levels, and he wants to get into media production, so film and that kind of film production and media production as a whole. But we went to university in Lincoln here in the UK yesterday, and they had an open day, and we were looking around, and there's all different courses on computer science, gaming, all these different things, but there's nothing at all around software testing, quality engineering, or anything like that. And maybe it's not big enough to create a separate degree in it, but ultimately it should be part of these other sort of degrees that happen, because it is part of everything that we do from a software perspective. And you've got to test it, right? Some way, somehow, it's got to be tested. So I find that really interesting, and
I,
the fact that you've experienced the same thing for your education is interesting too.
look, when we graduated, it was like decades ago,
Mm,
but I'm not sure that anything changed since. But
no.
today you have all these very good ISTQB courses, foundation and advanced,
Mm,
and you have QA and AI, and you have cybersecurity. I think we can create a degree of it. Like it has a lot already knowledge that gathered over time in the
yeah.
domain that it's possible. Like even automation, when you know this concept, if you give a fresh grad that know how to code, to write automation infrastructure,
Mm,
it will be thrown away
yeah.
because he doesn't have the capabilities to write a testing infrastructure. It's a different capability.
Yeah.
So even that should be taught like in a
Yeah.
separate way.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's something that there's been a number of people in our industry over the last few years that have tried to connect more into speaking with universities and trying to help them understand what syllabuses could look like, even at the most basic level, to try and plug them in. We've got a ways to go, I think. We've still got a ways to go. And obviously with the introduction of AI as well now, how does that help, hinder, change what people need to know? And personally, I don't think, from a foundational knowledge perspective of why you need to do things and how you need to do things, AI doesn't really change. It's just a different way of then approaching it.
Another tool in your pack.
Yeah, precisely. And I think that's something that, as we learn more, as we become more mature with using the different opportunities that are out there with AI, from a testing perspective and automation perspective, we'll understand that actually those human centric foundational skill sets and knowledge still need to be there to be able to prompt and such like. So yeah, I think it's things don't stand still, do they, Yulia? And this is what, obviously through your career, we spoke briefly when we did our intro about, sort of the journey you've been on and that kind of thing. And you've been like an individual contributor in certain roles, haven't you? And then you've also been
Yeah.
a leader, and you've been introduced into leadership roles and such like. And what's been the biggest difference for you between those different types of roles, and what have you learned versus maybe what are the similarities that you also have maintained?
So it's different between like learning a new tool during your
Mm,
career. Let's say I was doing manual testing. Now I need to start learning automation and to technically like acquire new knowledge.
mm,
VS, a shift of thinking, a shift of process, a shift of methodology that you need. It's more like a soft skill studying, acquiring. You need to feel open to it,
yeah.
first thing, but also you need to be like flexible in your and adaptable to the
Mm,
new realities. And I met people that they just object to learn or object to agree to feel and emotionally be open to this
mm.
process, and that's make harder for you to use this change for your advantage. during
Yeah.
time.
And why do you think that might be in terms of, because I've seen the same thing. I've seen some people that are just completely resistant to change or completely resistant to wanting to learn something new. And I I appreciate that change and learning something new is easier for some people than others, and to sort of adjust to and stuff like that. But in your experience, what are the things that maybe you've seen that are triggering those types of behaviors from people?
I think part of it is character,
Hmm.
but also part of it is like the environment where the culture in the company
Yeah.
where you are working. Let's say if you are a corporate and dozens of years you people work on the same thing
Hmm.
and they become used to it, and their manager, they don't try to shift their task to work in another team, so it becomes like part of their understanding of how the company works, how the company expect me to be working.
Hmm.
And then they have more resistance when you just drag them into change, or you just um, some corporates like to do that. They schedule a meeting for the entire department without any preparation and say, okay, guys, tomorrow, everyone use AI. We
Yeah.
start from tomorrow. And some people, they need some settling time.
Hmm.
Like they need their manager to be talking about them. There is a change coming. I need to prepare you for that. I
Yeah.
need you to be open to that. Maybe you learn about it a bit by yourself before I just
Yeah.
dump the task on you
Yeah.
and things like that. So yeah, I think those two things, like culture and personal nature, like human beings.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in those situations where
How
all of
did
a
you feel
sudden
it?
it's the classic, all of a sudden a meeting goes in the diary and you look, you go, okay, so this has got everybody. This meeting that we're going to go into, it's got everybody on the invite, and of course, straight away people are like, "Oh, panic! What's
Stress.
happening?" Yeah, threat and like what's happening, and
Are we going
something.
to be fired?
Are we going to be fired? Are we going to be made redundant? Are we, is there a big change coming of some kind? To your point, and it just puts everybody on the back foot straight away, like almost like puts you into defense mode. That's kind of how I always felt. Like straight away, my guard comes up, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then to be in that situation whereby, like you mentioned there, to say, from tomorrow or from next week, this is what we're going to be doing, right? We want everybody to start using AI. Okay, great, but how? What are we trying to solve? How do we learn those skills? How much time do we have before we're going to be under the spotlight to go, well, why haven't you done this? Why haven't you adopted AI? Why haven't you? So I think to your point there, I think it's if to sort of inform the senior leaders or the managers in advance of those changes coming, to enable them to sort of lay the foundations with people
Yes.
to bring the change, or if we know there's going to be a big announcement, start laying the foundations to sort of say, look, change is coming. We're going to be starting to look more at AI. So, let's start thinking about how we can potentially use this moving forward, and the skill sets that we've got in the team or we don't have in the team right now. How do we develop those skills? And then when that sort of bigger announcement comes, it's less of a surprise to people and less of a almost like a panic. And I always found that, from my perspective, trying to tell a story and really trying to help people understand why something potentially is going to happen, whether you agree with it or not, you know, trying to bring people on that journey to in enough in advance that it doesn't scare them, but just sort of like laying the foundations there so that it isn't such a massive surprise and shock for people to then sort of push back on. And I think, like you talked there about it being human, sort of human nature, that there's the cultural part and then there's the human nature side.
Yes.
Um, a lot of that stems around mindset, doesn't it? In terms of like people's
Yes.
different
Mindset.
types of mindset. What do you think in terms of what you've experienced in your roles, where you're trying to maybe introduce change yourself, or you're trying to take change that has been almost like flowed down from the top? What sort of mindsets have you seen have worked really well in that situation versus what sort of mindsets maybe have struggled?
Mindsets. So there are people that, like, if you, let's say, if you lead a team, you know, you after like 6 months, you know the people, you know who is gonna get the change happily and who is gonna push back. So you need to prepare a strategy for both people and know, like, if you are a good manager, let's say, you're doing one-on-ones with people. So people that are less open to changes, you need to be more preparing them before, like on one, because sometimes when you lay down the change, there are some people that will be very stressed when it's in public, and some people will be happy. Finally, the change is coming, you know? Yeah, so you know, you need to know your people, you know, you need to know who are
Yes.
you are leading, which people you need to prepare them before a bit, which people you need to work with them on it long term, and which people are gonna get it going and will be happy about it and you know, are waiting for the change. So even you can give roles to people, like if you know someone is leading it happily,
Yeah.
maybe to give him some small task before, so he will be already on board with you before you give them the knowledge, the like to know about it. And also I feel like you need to be very aligned and knowledgeable about the strategy, and like to give the reasoning also to the team, not okay, tomorrow we start right because I said so. Oh, because my manager told me that I need to tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not only about change. Sometimes it's about there is layoff. You know that they're gonna dismiss part of the team,
Mm.
and you also need to prepare for it. Sometimes you're not happy about the change as a manager,
Yeah.
and you think it's a mistake, but you are also the voice of the management. So you need sometimes to make it make sense to you before you make it sense to the people that you lead. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
not easy. You know, not all the changes
Yeah.
will love them.
No, it's not. I really like what you're saying there about knowing your people and knowing those people that are more inclined to embrace change versus those people that maybe are a little less, not willing, but maybe a bit more afraid of change, and getting more into that one-to-one type approach, sort of again just preempting some of that concern or preempting some of that pushback, and finding those people in your team that you're confident could help you lead that change as well. So it isn't then all on you to kind of make this happen. There's others in your team that you think actually this person, they're probably going to be wanting this change to happen because you know them, and you know they'll probably be happy about it. How can you kind of then allow them to take some of that leadership on as well? And I really like that thinking. And coming back to what you were saying there about when people are laid off and made redundant here in the UK, and we're seeing it so much, it's scary,
It's
honestly, it really
everywhere.
is. It's
Unfortunately, since
everywhere.
COVID, it's everywhere,
Yeah,
not only in
absolutely.
UK.
No, it's all over the place, and it is scary. And as a manager, as a leader of a team, to your point, you have to try and make it make sense, and that can be really hard because, especially if your leaders haven't really shared what you may what you may deem as a reasonable sort of reason for making these changes. So what, share with me okay, well, we're going to make these changes, but what's the vision? What direction are we going in? I've got to talk to the team about this, so I need to understand that. And I think that's really critical. If depending on which level of leadership or management you're at, you've got to think about that as well. So if you're in the position where you're leading leaders, so you're managing managers, you've got
Yes.
to allow that to flow, and you've got to allow that to make sense to them so that then they can make sense to the team.
Also, you need
And
to let the people speak their mind and their emotions about the
absolutely,
change in order to
yeah,
settle them down. You
yeah,
need to have the answers. They are looking at you.
yeah. Yeah, and that pressure is there, right? And sometimes even if you don't have the answers, knowing where to go and get them so that you can help answer
Yes.
those questions, because you want them to trust you. You want them to be able to say, I'm putting my faith in you to help me in this situation and support me in this situation. Interestingly, obviously moving from maybe individual contributor, what we touched on earlier, into more leadership. How did you find that transition, Yulia? Because it's not an easy one. I mean, I've not really I've been in leadership roles for many, many years now. So different types of
How much
leadership.
years?
But now you're just going to get me to tell you my age, aren't you? So
No?
I started my career in 1998.
Wow,
And yeah, I'm very useful.
that's a lot.
Yeah. But so almost 3 decades I've been, so what's that, 28 years. I think all but five of those, no, actually, no, that's a bit of a lie. So I started my career 5 years into my career. I took my first leadership role on, and then I was in that role for 5 years, and then I left that company and I went to work for EasyJet. But to broaden my skill set and broaden my experience, I took a step back. So I went from being a sort of a test manager and then to a senior test analyst role. So it's still a senior position, but I wasn't leading people at that point. And I was in that role for a couple of years and then went back into leadership. So
Why did you decide to do this change? That's a different kind of change.
yeah, so the reason I decided to do that was really about me growing my experience. So I'd been in the same company from the start of my career for 10 years. And the company I worked for were in the airline industry, and they worked on software that published airline schedules. So that whether that be in print form or whether that be on digital screens and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I knew I really loved the airline industry. It was a great industry to be in. But also I knew if I stayed there too much longer, the world of tech was moving so quickly. It was moving quicker than what we were within the organization. And an opportunity came up through a friend of mine that worked at EasyJet, who used to work with me at my original company. And he said, Stu, we've got these roles. And I was ummed and ahed because I felt like early in my leadership management career, I was like, do I take a step back to try and then go forward? But I did, because basically that then exposed me to e-commerce, retail, digital
Huh?
websites, all this sort of agile
Yeah.
methodology, web, yeah, automation, which we were doing a little bit here and there in the company I originally was in, but then this opened up so it was the best decision I ever made, albeit it was a very scary one. But within a couple of years, what the thing was with going to that role, and I was very honest at the time when I went for the role, was, I want to move into sort of leadership, not as quickly as possible, but as soon as I'm ready within the new structure and this new space. So that was about 2 years in, I think I was there for 4 years. So I did 2 years as a senior test analyst, and then 2 years as a sort of a test manager at EasyJet. But then every role since has been in leadership. So coming back to your original question, I think, say 27 years I've been in the industry, 20 of those have been in different types of leadership, whether that be test manager roles, senior test manager roles, head of quality roles, different types of senior consultancy roles, which are kind of individual contributor type roles. But this is when I was doing a bit more contracting early on, or sort of not early on, but in
You
those sort
tried
of
everything possible in this domain.
I've tried a few things. Yeah, I've tried a few things and I've learnt a lot. I've got some scars. I've lost my hair.
Oh my God.
I've gone very grey. I was looking at a picture of me from not that many years ago, actually, and my beard was black. I mean, I don't know what's happened. It's gone white now. So yeah. I've outside of that, my early on career, I've not gone back to being kind of in an individual contributor. I am now, because I'm in a consultancy company now at 1010. So my role is a little bit more individual contributor, type role. So I'm having to kind of make that adjustment again slightly. I'm not leading a team, but I am doing sort of, I'm working with a lot of different people within the business, which is great. But I'm not leading a team specifically. But from your experience, Yulia, into sort of making that transition, what are the things that you've kind of seen and or the challenges that you've maybe faced into? Because learning those softer skills from a people perspective, managing expectation, managing conflict, leading through change rather than just being part of change, and helping people adjust to change is hard. You know, my experience is it is hard and it can be hard. So how have you kind of managed that over the time of sort of adjusting and adapting?
Okay, so basically, when I moved from the corporate to the medical tech company, I worked from automation to a QA lead position. I was the first QA in a startup without any QAs, the medical startup. So basically, the developers, the engineers, they were testing their own applications and code before I came. And it was a company of 50 people, so very small R&D, less than 20 developers.
And sorry, and
Um,
you were the only QA at that time, is that correct? Did you say?
yeah, but the
Right.
company exists like for like at least 3-4 years before I came.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
And their VP R&D was actually testing. Like he was the sign-off before I came, and he said, "The work is too much already for me as VP R&D. I'm doing like multiple hats. Come help me."
I'm not surprised. Wow.
Yeah, like leading 20 people
Mm,
and being in medical, he also needed to be like traveling to the hospitals, clinics, to be connecting between R&D and the business requirements. So
yeah.
was a lot to do.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was the QA lead, and at the beginning, I was basically part of hands-on, but also deciding on methodology. My first week was to change the entire testing method and testing tool because I saw that they are running tests in spreadsheets, the developers.
Right. Yeah.
They show me how it works
Yeah.
with them, and I say, guys, we cannot carry on like this.
Uh,
We work with it like for some time. Actually, I have very good partner to doing those changes because my VP R&D, he wanted the changes. He
yeah.
wanted for me to bring the fresh perspective, especially when I come from a big corporate with very aligned processes, very
Mm,
clear procedures, and very like robust tools, tools that
yeah.
are acceptable in the industry. So he wanted me to bring this knowledge to the team, and he told that one of the best like sentences that he said to me in the first meetings is, "You have the fresh eyes that we don't already have in the company. Use it to
Yeah.
improve things."
Oh, that's
So
great support.
yeah, so when you have the support and you
Mm,
have to make sure when you do a change that you are backed up by your managers, because if you
mm,
don't, it will not work, you know, because every
yeah.
single like small issue you will feel like something like they will not be happy about the change and it will be
Yeah.
reflected up. So you have to have a backed up. That's first thing, most important one maybe. And then you have to be patient, very patient with the people because you need to understand,
Yeah.
okay, you like chew this change in your head like dozens of times, but they didn't. They hear it for the first time and maybe they're not
Yeah.
happy. So you need to be patient and understand that you will get pushbacks. You will need to deal with it. You will need to address it.
Mm,
But if you decide on doing the change, do not go back. Like you cannot, like people will start complaining and everything. Say, you know what, guys, let's not do it. So that's
yeah.
not a possibility. You know, to
Yeah.
be 100% sure that you are going through with it. Maybe
Yeah.
you decide we try it for 3 months. If it doesn't go well, we maybe do another change. That's fine.
Mm,
but don't give a feeling like you are reverting it. Even in coding, the last thing you want to do is revert the code. That's the worst thing of any development manager. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think that's it. We can speak about the changes that I did, maybe in more detail
Yeah,
or
that would be
practice.
good. Yeah, because I think when it comes to sort of, especially when you're landing into a role and you're the first person to join in that type of role, people are looking at you in two different ways. I'm guessing it's one's like your boss was saying, "Oh, you're my savior because you're going to come in and change this," and then other people are coming in and going, what are we doing wrong? Why are we, it's almost like when you're trying to then influence that change, almost helping them understand. It's very important to always help them understand why we need to change, but ultimately, what are we trying to get to as well? What does good look like? Because like you said there about, you could try it for 3 months and maybe if it's not working, then not revert, but maybe going in a different slightly direction, but ultimately there's kind of a goal that you're trying to achieve, isn't there? And
Yeah.
if you can't explain that goal to the team, then that becomes very difficult to then influence that change. So in terms of the changes that you were looking to make, what sort of things were maybe easier than others, for people to get on board with, let's say?
Okay. So sometimes it depends on what grounds you arrive, because sometimes you come, people are happy with their flow, they don't want
Mm,
to change it. But sometimes you come and they're already not happy. They know that they don't like that part. This part makes them work harder. And they already know that they want the change. But they
yeah,
don't know how to do it because they don't have the professional knowledge or the strategy or all of that. So when you land on a grounds where people want the change, that's the easier
of
because
course,
they're
yeah,
already onboarded for the
yeah,
change. But when you have the other part or you have some disagreement between, because let's say in the medical startup that I worked, we have 4 product teams.
mm,
So I have different products. I have like urinalysis and chronic wounds and web portal with the results and another team of data scientists.
mm,
So every team is different manager. Maybe they have slightly different flow. So you need to adjust, but have still some kind of like general guidelines and general process that is similar between the teams.
yeah,
Yeah. So the first things that I do is change the toolings.
hmm,
But when you change toolings, you need to also introduce some new procedures.
yes,
Like now you will document your test cases in spreadsheets. Now you need to document it in Jira.
mhm,
It's a different process. We work differently with Jira than we work with spreadsheets. And you need to decide on the tool. You need to do some due diligence process with yourself. That's the first stage. So when you choose a tool for developers to be testing, you look at it differently than if you choose the tool for your QA test team. Because your
yeah,
QA testing team, they know how to work with tools, or they at least understand the basic concept of logging a test case,
yeah.
running it, executing, and going back to it, and all of that. But when you do it for the developer team, you need to know that developers, they don't like to click things. As less clicks as possible was one of my guidelines. Like, don't
Yeah.
give them a tool, then they need to click 10 things until they get to the point. They hate it. They will
Yeah,
hate me and the change. So I needed to consider it. You need to
yeah,
consider your audience before you introduce the change.
yes, yeah,
Before,
absolutely.
you know, yeah.
That's so true. Developers don't want to. This is why that I can write something that can do this so much quicker. They don't want to be clicking, like you say, clicking those buttons. And the audience, understanding your audience is so important. And I think this gets overlooked quite often, especially when introducing new tooling, because I've found with within certain teams or organizations I've been in, like there's a new hot tool on the market. Everybody wants to use the new tool because it's new, shiny. But what
It
problems?
looks nice also, of course.
It looks nice, yeah, and everybody wants to have a play around with it and learn and stuff. But I've seen it where teams have introduced a new tool that's written in a completely different language to what our developers use, and then you're maintaining two different sort of languages across your your code base from a software code, but then also the test code that you're writing. And then they're saying, well, we want the developers to help write the tests, and you're like, yeah, but now they've got to write things in two different types of code. That's not exactly efficient, is it? And
Not the best practice.
not the best practice. And and so there's so many things to take into consideration. And I think to your point there about the audience, knowing your audience is really important. And I think not just introducing a tool because it's new, but also because you as an individual think it's great, right? So you may have used, if say for example, you may have used a test management tool before in a previous company and gone, I love this tool. I'm automatically going to introduce it here because I like it, but it may not be the best fit for the team.
So basically, the audience part is not just the audience, it's like stakeholders in
Yes.
testing. You need to consider yourself, you need to consider your upper management and also
Yeah.
the team,
Yeah.
because you need to show reports, you need to be comfortable with checking what they are logging in there, right? The developers and such. So you need to consider all the stakeholders that will be using this team. Even
Yeah.
in medical company, you even need to show it to the auditor. You need to feel comfortable with what you're showing.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really like in the testing world when you need to consider in the test requirements all your stakeholders that are gonna be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great advice for anybody that's looking to influence and implement any type of change. Understand that audience, understand the scale of that audience, who they are at different levels. It's not just the team, it's your stakeholders, you as an individual as well, and making sure everybody is going to benefit from that, especially like coming back to the tooling side of things. If you're introducing the tooling, using that as an example still, that's so important that everybody's going to get value from that tool. And like the people that want to see the reports are able to see the reports. The people that need to write the reports are able to write them. The people that need to run the tests and create the test to ultimately show up in the report. It's all connected, right? And making sure those things work together is really important. So in terms of like different types of change in that you've been part of, thinking about scale, like in terms of it might be within a particular domain, a team versus in departments. Have you had sort of that experience of where an approach to say implementing change or nurturing change within a team, the approach to that is different to say if you need to do it at a much broader scale at a department level? Is there a lot of difference in your experience in that?
I think yes, the most important thing I think in team and cross-functional different department changes is the trust. Like your team, usually they have the trust in you as a manager. They know that if you are bringing a change, it's because you know what you are doing. You are not them. You know the change that the team needs. But when you need to roll out a change in a cross department or all the company changes, that's sometimes people in the other departments, they don't know you.
Yeah.
They don't know. Why should they listen to it? There is a certain like talks about all these topics that leading without authority, right?
Yes.
You are no one to them. Who know you?
Yeah.
And you need to be more convincing and need to have all your ideas and all your objections more ordered and more like ready, and also the support from the management to do this change.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be the one in the room where the manager comes and say, listen to her, she knows what she's saying. You need to earn it.
Yeah.
To earn this trust with the people.
Yeah, and in your experience, Yulia, how have you gone about doing that? Because you're right, like if people don't know who you are, you've got to firstly you need to introduce yourself and help them understand who you are. But what is if do you have a particular way of sort of helping do that and building that trust, or is it just something that maybe happens organically over time through trying to have conversations with people and building more awareness?
It's similar to what we spoke before of preparing people.
Yeah.
It's a good advice that you talk to some people that maybe know you or know you better, and to make them be on your side before the big meeting with all of them. And then you have already people that are in agreement in the room, so it's already easier to lay the change. But not only that, you need to really be very, very prepared. I mean, you need to have some presentation, explanation, and also like to give some examples. But before you come to that meeting, you need to be interviewing the people that use the tools that you want to change or use the method that you want to change. You need to understand the pains and to mention it so they can relate. Okay, they are thinking about it's take us a very long time to test. So it's a pain. You need to address the pain.
Yes.
You need to use it for your benefit of saying, guys, we can shorten the time in 10%. And then it will really can talk to the people, because change is also about emotion. Like if you emotionally don't want to do a change, it will be hard to make you do it.
Yeah.
And even if you do, you will feel like I'm doing it only because I'm working here. I'm doing it only because I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's never good.
No, yeah, you've got to build that connection, haven't you, with people and help them understand why it's so important, and but actually understanding their problems and their challenges and relating things to say, well, actually, if we do this, this is going to help the things that you're currently struggling with, and even if it's 10%, that's 10% better than it was before. So if we do 10% now, we can keep doing it, looking at this and how we keep building on that. So yeah, I think that's really important. What would you say, Yulia, over your career so far has been, well, a couple of things really. One, what has been your biggest challenge throughout your career in terms of whether that be adapting to change, taking on a new role, you're taking on a new challenge of your own, but then also what would you say is kind of like being your biggest learning out of that you've kind of gone, this is a real like almost inspiring light bulb like moment that's kind of changed maybe your thinking or changed your direction of that you've gone on to do?
That's a good question. Can you give me an example of what would you think is a big change to
Yeah,
be
well, I mean,
from your
it
career?
yeah, so I think that there's different types. It doesn't necessarily even need to be a big change, because I think, for me, like one of the biggest challenges I've faced was making that move that making that decision to make that move where I stepped back and took a backward step, almost like in a new role. That was a real challenge for me, because I went from being in a position where I was the person that was kind of leading the way and being looked at as the person to come up with strategies and stuff like that, versus then moving into a position where I was contributing into but wasn't necessarily the person that was solely ultimately responsible for these things. And that was quite a big adjustment for me, in the sense of, okay, I've now got to kind of flip my head around a little bit here and come at this with a slightly different lens, and make sure that I'm contributing. But at the same time, I was having to learn a new environment, a new set of technologies, a new way of working. For me, that was kind of like quite a big challenge. But what it did was it helped me understand that I can do that sort of thing. Even learning a whole new methodology of delivery, as in like agile at the time, I didn't have a clue really. I kind of knew what agile was, and we tried to do little bits here and there in the original company I was in. But then when I went to EasyJet, it was a really big thing. It was like, well, this is how we work, and it's 2 week sprints, and it's this and it's that, and we got stand-ups every day and all these different things.
Demos.
Demos, and retrospectives and planning sessions. And I mean, back then I think our planning sessions were like 2 days, like 2 day planning sessions, which was really long, because this would have been it would have been around 2010, 2011 or something like that, maybe. So yeah, just getting my head into that, that was quite challenging for me, kind of taking that step back into a different type of role. Am I doing the right thing? I have no idea. Now I'm learning all this new stuff. But for me, it's the best decision I ever made. It's quite it meant I learned that I could do that. I'm able to do that, right? But B, it opened up my mind in so many different ways. And also the people that I met there was such a variation of people that just helped me expand my thinking and expand my skill set. And I think it was almost a bit of a, even though my first leadership position was in the original company I was in, I think my time at EasyJet was the catalyst to the rest of my career, if that makes sense.
Wow.
So yeah, so I think for me that was probably. There's been I've done larger scale transformations in head of roles. So there's been some bigger challenges, and the people
That's
side of
interesting.
things.
I would like to hear about that too.
Well, I don't think we've got enough time to talk fully about that,
Okay,
but we can definitely catch up
sure,
offline
sure.
on that one. But I think like the other part to that for me is people. Like there's always a challenge of people now, and when I talk about
Because
that,
people is not computers. They're unpredictable.
they're unique. Every individual
Yeah,
human being is unique, so you've got to
yeah,
take that
that's
time
true.
to really help understand them. But then scaling people, trying to scale people is way harder than scaling technology. So for me, over the years, I've learned kind of like, those sort of things have been quite challenging. But yeah, so I don't know if you've experienced something similar, or whether you've got an example or a story of your own that you'd like to share.
Yeah, sure. Let's try that. So I have two examples
Let's go for it.
that I thought of. One is when I worked in as a hands-on, we
Yeah.
were using automation tools to write code, feature end-to-end flows, and it was like agile team. So I'm the only tester with 5 developers, and each
Mm.
other team of component testing has their own tester. So each tester knows their own domain. And I'm being pregnant at the end of the development of the feature already. And I
Yeah.
need to write this automation after the feature is released, and I can test it manually. Then I write it. Then I write the automation. That's the method that it was in like 2012, maybe.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how they wrote the automation.
Yes, I experienced
And
all of that.
yeah, then I come to my manager and I want to finish the feature before I go, but I don't know when
Mm.
I'm gonna give birth. Like it can be any day or. So I'm telling her, you know what? Let me write the automation without testing the feature. And
Yeah.
then when I'm in maternity leave, you run it. And she was on board with it.
Mm.
And after doing that, which was very hard, it's like writing code without being able to run it.
Yeah.
It's kind of writing blindly.
Mm.
After I wrote it and I was back from the maternity leave, I discovered that now they write all the automation like that.
Nice. Excellent.
Before,
Yeah.
yeah, so I introduced a change without knowing that I'm doing that. Just from the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, the change in my personal life impacted a change in the company.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's one change that occurred to me. The other change was in the medical startup where I was a QA lead. I was
Yeah.
we already introduced the tools in the company for test management and bug reporting. At the time, I was 9 months a QA lead there, and the startup that was like 50 people, it starts scaling. They recruit more and more people, and we have more developers. If at the beginning we have like I was working directly with 5 people, now I need to work with 10, and each one of them coming from a different background, a different company, and they have different understanding of what testing is, because you remember we spoke about it, that the company was testing without testers, so the
Yeah.
developers was testing each other's code, but then some developers are more strict with the testing they do, and they do wider range of the testing, wider
Yeah.
coverage, and some of them they don't have this good background of testing and knowledge, and they're doing it worse, and the features that coming under them is not as good as the other ones.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to my manager and I'm telling him, because it's still a small company, so you talk daily with the developers and they say we're testing more and more, we feel like we're testing more than we're writing code, we don't like it.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing it more and more, and I also see it, because if before that, I was sitting with them and we run tests 1, 2, 3 hours. Now it's days,
Yeah.
and it's not good. We are a startup. We need to move fast. We cannot allow it.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm talking to my manager. I'm telling him, I think it's time to shift for a QA team, and testing without testers will not work anymore, because even I cannot test for products.
No.
Like I can do some end to end for each of them, but I see that already it's not working anymore. So it took me time to convince him, though, that we need to do it, because it's budget and we need to define which role to which team and such. After I saw that we needed already after 6 months, but we actually started to recruit after 9 months.
Right. Okay.
Like it took us 3 months to get ready and decide and approve to build the team. And we built a small team. We took one junior and another one with 2 years of experience
Yeah.
to two different product teams. And it was a very hard experience for me to start recruiting at the first time. I never recruited anyone before. Yeah.
Yeah. The recruitment's always a challenge. And if it's the first time doing it and it's the first time you're building a new team, that's almost like a double-edged sword that,
It's a
difficulty
lot of
and
responsibility, because
yeah.
you're bringing someone and then it's on you
Yeah.
if he has succeeded or not, and it costs the company a lot to
Yeah.
recruit, and if it's not successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think like it's those difficult conversations around needing to build teams, but then also having to think about, do we have the budget? Does it fit within the bigger vision? All these things that, when you're trying to introduce change, you need to be aware of, so you can then have the conversations on a relatable level as well with your manager and stuff like that. And when you're doing that for the first time, in terms of building a team, that is a big challenge. I mean, I've lost count of how many interviews and how many people I've recruited over the years now, but
Do
yeah,
you keep
it's
a record of the success and unsuccess rates?
not necessarily the success and unsuccess rates, but I remember, I think when I was at EasyJet, the other test manager there, and we ended up leaving at a similar time, and I remember we used to do a lot of interviews because we used to have a lot of contractors as well as permanent staff, and obviously contractors would come and go and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And he used to have a spreadsheet of all the interviews that we'd ever done across, and it was in the hundreds. It was crazy how many like interviews, and obviously just because somebody interviews doesn't mean they necessarily get the role, but so there's so much
Yeah.
time and investment goes into it. And even now in my new role, I've been there a couple of months, I've just started getting involved in the interview process and stuff like that as well. So again, that's really interesting because being a consultancy, we've got a lot of different roles, a lot of different clients, and you know, those kind of things. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of team building that goes on through, you know, constantly, you know, throughout. So yeah, so that can be an interesting challenge, definitely. Even once you've been doing it for a number of years, it's still always interesting. Yulia, we've been talking for well over an hour. Can you believe that we've been talking for well over an hour? It's gone so quickly.
No, it didn't feel like it.
No, I know it never does. Once we get into these conversations, so many guests will be like surprised when I say how long we've been speaking for. This conversation has been great, Yulia. I really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
coming on, joining, and sharing your
Likewise.
experience and nuggets of information that you've, you know, and insights that you've experienced over the years. Before we close the show, though, I always give sort of like our guests an opportunity to leave one lasting statement, or if there's anything that they'd like to share to almost close the show off with, then the floor is yours. You don't have to, don't feel pressure, but if there's anything else you want to add to what we've been talking about for the audience, then by all means feel free.
All right. So the thing that I think is most important is say yes. First, say yes. Then you think about it.
Yeah,
Then you
just
think
say
about
yes.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
come at things with a bit of a positive mindset, and yeah, definitely from a change perspective, I think sometimes you just have to take that chance, don't you, and say yes, and then we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, you never know when the road will take you after say yes.
Yeah, well, and we come back to your involvement now with Ministry of Testing, right?
Yeah,
You know,
that
it's a
was
great
a
example.
very surprising yes.
Yeah,
Actually, I said yes to the article writing in the middle of it.
perfect. That's great. I'm looking forward to it when it drops, so I can
Sure, I will
read it.
drop you a link when it does.
Please do, please do. Thank you so much, Julia, for joining. This has been great. If anybody wants to connect with you, you're on LinkedIn, correct?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, on Minister of Testing, and I have the blog in Medium.
So yeah,
Great.
so if you'd like to get in touch with Yulia, everybody, then as I say, LinkedIn, Ministry of Testing, and also Yulia's got a blog on Medium, which you can connect into from the show notes. This has been great. Thank you so much. I hope everybody's enjoyed listening to Yulia's journey and has taken some learnings from all the insights that she's shared. That's it for now. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and join us next time on another episode of Quality Talks podcast. Goodbye.